The rain-soaked streets of Oakwood Hills glistened under the flickering streetlights as Sarah Wilkins stared in horror at the smashed remains of her beloved vintage Corvette. Shards of glass and twisted metal lay strewn across the driveway, still smoldering from the impact. "No, no, no," she whispered, her voice trembling. This was no accident. Her car had been deliberately destroyed, and she knew exactly who was responsible. Gripping the cold metal of the crowbar in her hand, Sarah spun around, her gaze locked on the looming shadow of the Oakwood Hills Homeowners Association building at the end of the block. Somewhere in that fortress of power and corruption, the one responsible for this act of malicious vandalism was sitting smugly, thinking they had gotten away with it. "Not this time, you HOA bitch," Sarah growled through gritted teeth. This was war. For years, Sarah had fought a relentless battle against the tyrannical rule of the Oakwood Hills HOA, a shadowy cabal of power-hungry elites who wielded their bylaws and regulations like weapons to control and manipulate the residents. Every time she tried to stand up to their unjust fines, arbitrary rules, and underhanded tactics, they would retaliate with escalating measures, from threatening letters to outright harassment. But this time, they had gone too far. Destroying her prized possession, her connection to happier times, was a line that could not be uncrossed. Sarah knew she had to strike back, and strike back hard. Steeling herself, she marched towards the HOA headquarters, her mind racing with 1,000 calculated maneuvers. She would use their own rules against them, outmaneuver them at every turn, and expose the corruption that festered at the heart of this gated community. As she approached the imposing glass doors, Sarah could feel the eyes of hidden security cameras watching her every move. The HOA was always watching, always waiting to pounce on any perceived infraction. But this time, the hunter was about to become the hunted. Pushing open the doors, Sarah strode into the dimly lit lobby, her gaze sweeping across the sterile, impersonal space. The air was thick with an oppressive sense of unease, as if the very walls were closing in on her. At the far end of the room, a lone figure sat behind a desk, their features obscured by the glare of a computer monitor. Sarah recognized the prim, manicured appearance of Meredith Whitestone, the HOA's ruthless and unyielding president. "Mrs. Wilkins," Meredith said, her voice dripping with faint concern. "I heard about the unfortunate incident with your vehicle. Such a shame." Sarah could hear the underlying smugness in her tone, the barely concealed glee at the sight of her adversary's misfortune. But she refused to give Meredith the satisfaction of seeing her anger and fear. "Cut the crap, Meredith," Sarah snapped, slamming the crowbar down on the desk, causing the HOA president to flinch. "You and your goons destroyed my car, and I want answers. Now." Meredith's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a thin, predatory smile. "My dear, I have no idea what you're talking about. Perhaps you should consider the possibility that your precious car simply couldn't withstand the rigors of our community's high standards." Sarah's grip tightened on the crowbar, her knuckles turning white. "Don't play dumb with me. I know you're behind this, and I'm going to prove it. You're going to regret the day you crossed me, Meredith." The two women locked eyes, the air thick with tension and unspoken threats. This was no mere dispute between neighbors. It was a battle for control, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where the stakes were higher than either of them could imagine. And Sarah Wilkins was determined to win, no matter the cost. The fluorescent lights overhead cast an eerie glow over the HOA's sterile lobby as Sarah and Meredith engaged in a silent battle of wills. Sarah's grip on the crowbar tightened, her knuckles turning white, while Meredith's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a predatory smile. "You have no proof, Mrs. Wilkins," Meredith said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Perhaps you should consider the possibility that your precious car simply couldn't withstand the rigors of our community's high standards." Sarah's jaw clenched, her anger boiling just beneath the surface. "Don't give me that crap, Meredith. I know you and your goons are behind this, and I'm going to prove it." Meredith leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers in front of her. My dear, I'm afraid you're grasping at straws. The Oakwood Hills HOA does not engage in such petty acts of vandalism. We are here to uphold the integrity and property values of our community. Bullshit, Sarah spat. You and your cronies have been harassing me for years, ever since I refused to remove that unsightly evergreen bush from my front yard. This is just the latest in a long line of your underhanded tactics. Meredith's expression darkened, her facade of calm professionalism slipping for a brief moment. You would do well to remember your place, Mrs. Wilkins. The HOA is here to protect the interests of all our residents, not cater to the whims of a few troublemakers. Sarah couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. Protect the interests? Is that what you call it when you fine people for having the wrong color mailbox or force them to remove their holiday decorations in the middle of December? Those are the rules, Mrs. Wilkins, and they apply to everyone equally, Meredith said, her voice hardening. If you had simply complied with the regulations instead of constantly challenging them, perhaps we wouldn't be in this situation. Complied. Sarah's eyes narrowed, a spark of defiance igniting within her. You mean submit to your petty tyranny, is that it? Well, I've got news for you, Meredith. I'm not going to play by your rules anymore. This ends here. Meredith's expression darkened, her fingers tightening around the arms of her chair. Are you threatening me, Mrs. Wilkins? No, Sarah said, a grim smile spreading across her face. I'm declaring war. With that, she turned and strode towards the exit, the crowbar still clutched in her hand. Meredith watched her go, her eyes narrowed, a mix of anger and unease flickering across her features. As Sarah stepped out into the rain-soaked night, she could feel the weight of the crowbar in her hand, a tangible reminder of the battle she had just declared. She knew that Meredith and the rest of the HOA would not take this challenge lying down. They would fight back with everything they had. But Sarah was ready. She had spent years studying the HOA's bylaws, memorizing the fine print and loopholes that could be exploited. And now, with her prized possession destroyed, she was more determined than ever to take them down. Climbing into her remaining car, a beat-up old sedan, Sarah gunned the engine and peeled out of the HOA's parking lot, her mind racing with 1,000 different strategies and counterattacks. She would need to be smart, cunning, and relentless if she was going to outwit the HOA's well-oiled machine of power and corruption. As the rain pounded against the windshield, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of grim determination. This was no longer just about her car. It was about standing up to the tyranny that had been imposed on her and her neighbors for far too long. You picked the wrong person to mess with, Meredith, she muttered under her breath. And this time, I'm not going to stop until I bring your entire empire crashing down. The streets of Oakwood Hills were about to become a battleground, and Sarah Wilkins was ready to fight. The flickering streetlights cast an ominous glow over the rain-soaked streets of Oakwood Hills as Sarah Wilkins drove home, her mind racing with 1,000 different strategies to take down the HOA's corrupt regime. As she pulled into her driveway, the shattered remains of her beloved Corvette came into view, a stark reminder of the stakes she was playing for. Gripping the steering wheel, she took a deep breath, trying to calm the surge of rage and determination that threatened to overwhelm her. All right, Meredith, she muttered under her breath. If it's a war you want, then it's a war you're going to get. Stepping out of the car, Sarah quickly scanned the area, her eyes narrowed, searching for any sign of hidden cameras or surveillance. The HOA was always watching, and she knew she had to be vigilant if she wanted to stay one step ahead of them. Crossing the driveway, she knelt down, carefully examining the twisted metal and shattered glass. As she ran her fingers over the damage, her brow furrowed in concentration. There had to be some clue, some piece of evidence that could help her unravel the HOA's involvement in this act of vandalism. Suddenly, her gaze landed on a small, shiny object partially hidden beneath the debris. Reaching out, she plucked it from the ground, her eyes widening as she recognized a distinctive Oakwood Hills HOA logo emblazoned on the surface. "Gotcha," she murmured, a grim smile spreading across her face. This was the break she had been looking for. Proof that the HOA was directly responsible for the destruction of her car. Clutching the small object tightly in her hand, Sarah hurried into the house, her mind already racing with the plan of attack. She knew that Meredith and the rest of the HOA would be on high alert, waiting for her next move. But this time, she was going to strike first, using their own arrogance and overconfidence against them. Rushing to her home office, Sarah booted up her computer and began frantically typing, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She had spent years studying the HOA's bylaws and regulations, and now she was going to put that knowledge to the ultimate test. As she delved deeper into the digital archives, her eyes narrowed with determination. There had to be a way to turn the tables on the HOA, to use their own rules and procedures against them. And she was going to find it, no matter how long it took. Hours passed, the rain outside gradually tapering off as the night wore on. But Sarah remained glued to her computer, her gaze fixed on the screen, her mind a whirlwind of legal jargon and strategic maneuvers. Finally, just as the first hints of dawn began to creep over the horizon, she leaned back in her chair, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. She had found it. The key to unraveling the HOA's stranglehold on the community. Grabbing the small object she had found earlier, Sarah hurried to her car, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She knew that what she was about to do would be a dangerous gamble, but she was beyond the point of no return. This was war, and she was going to fight it with every ounce of her being. As she pulled out of the driveway and headed towards the HOA headquarters, the rising sun cast a warm glow over the quiet streets of Oakwood Hills. But Sarah knew that beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. One that would shake the very foundations of the community and test the limits of her own determination and resilience. She was ready. Meredith and the rest of the HOA had no idea what was coming. And this time, Sarah Wilkins was determined to win, no matter the cost. The Oakwood Hills HOA headquarters loomed before Sarah Wilkins, its imposing glass and steel facade a testament to the power and influence wielded by its corrupt leadership. As she approached the building, her grip tightened on the small object she had found at the scene of her destroyed Corvette, the key to unraveling the HOA's stranglehold on the community. Pushing open the doors, Sarah strode into the dimly lit lobby, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of Meredith or her henchmen. The place was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of the security cameras that tracked her every move. Steeling her nerves, Sarah approached the front desk, where a bored-looking receptionist sat typing away on a computer. "I need to speak with Meredith Whitestone," she said, her voice calm and controlled. The receptionist looked up, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but this is urgent," Sarah replied, leaning in slightly. "It's about that incident with my car." The receptionist's expression hardened, and she shook her head. "I'm sorry, but Mrs. Whitestone is not available at the moment. If you'd like to leave a message, I can." "This can't wait," Sarah interrupted, slamming the small object down on the desk. "I have proof that the HOA was involved in the destruction of my property, and I won't leave until I speak with Meredith." The receptionist's eyes widened as she recognized the HOA logo on the object, and she quickly picked up the phone, her fingers dialing a number with a sense of urgency. "Security, we have a situation in the lobby. Mrs. Wilkins is here, and she's making some allegations." Sarah tensed, her heart pounding in her chest as she waited for Meredith's response. She knew she was taking a huge risk, but she also knew that this was her best chance to finally bring the HOA's corruption to light. After a few tense moments, Meredith burst through a set of double doors, her eyes blazing with fury. "Mrs. Wilkins," she hissed, "what is the meaning of this?" "You know exactly what this is about, Meredith," Sarah replied, her voice even and resolute. "I found this at the scene of the crime, and it has your fingerprints all over it. Meredith's expression darkened, and she glanced nervously at the receptionist, who was watching the exchange with a mixture of fear and fascination. "I have no idea what you're talking about," the HOA president snapped. "This is an outrageous accusation, and I won't stand for it." "Save it, Meredith," Sarah said, her lips curling into a grim smile. "I've been studying your precious bylaws, and I know exactly how to use them against you. You and your cronies are going down, and this time, there's no one left to bail you out." Meredith's face flushed with anger, and she took a step forward, her manicured nails digging into the palms of her hands. "You have no idea what you're up against, Mrs. Wilkins. The HOA is a powerful institution, and we have friends in high places. You're nothing but a small-time troublemaker, and we're going to crush you like the bug you are." Sarah didn't flinch, her gaze unwavering. "We'll see about that, Meredith. I'm not going to stop until I bring your entire corrupt empire crashing down, and this little trinket is just the beginning." With that, she turned and walked towards the exit, her head held high. Meredith watched her go, her face twisted with rage and desperation. She knew that Sarah had the upper hand, and that her carefully constructed web of power and control was starting to unravel. As the doors closed behind Sarah, she couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration. She had finally taken the first step in her war against the HOA, and she wasn't about to back down now. This was a fight for the very soul of Oakwood Hills, and she was determined to win, no matter the cost. The rain had stopped, but the air in Oakwood Hills still carried an ominous chill as Sarah Wilkins returned home, her mind racing with the events that had just unfolded at the HOA headquarters. She had faced down Meredith Whitestone, the ruthless and unyielding president of the Oakwood Hills Homeowners Association, and emerged victorious, for now. The small, incriminating object she had found at the scene of her destroyed Corvette had been the key to unlocking the HOA's carefully constructed web of corruption. But Sarah knew that this was just the beginning of a long and arduous battle. Meredith and her cronies would not take this challenge lying down. They would fight back with everything they had, determined to crush her and maintain their stranglehold on the community. Stepping into her home, Sarah paused, her gaze sweeping the familiar surroundings. She had lived in Oakwood Hills for over a decade, but in the past few years, the gated community had become a battleground, a constant source of stress and conflict. "Not anymore," she muttered, her fingers tightening around the small object in her hand. This time, she was going to take the fight directly to the HOA, using their own rules and regulations against them. Striding into her home office, Sarah booted up her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she delved deeper into the HOA's digital archives. She had spent countless hours poring over the bylaws, searching for any loopholes or inconsistencies that she could exploit, and now she was ready to put her knowledge to the test. As she navigated the complex web of regulations and procedures, Sarah's brow furrowed in concentration. There had to be a way to use the HOA's own power against them, to expose the corruption and abuses that had been festering beneath the surface for years. Suddenly, her eyes widened, and a grim smile spread across her face. "Gotcha," she murmured, her fingers typing furiously as she began to formulate her plan of attack. The HOA had always prided itself on its strict adherence to the rules, using them as a weapon to control and manipulate the residents of Oakwood Hills. But Sarah had discovered a glaring loophole, a tiny oversight in the bylaws that could be the key to her victory. Jumping up from her desk, Sarah hurried to the front door, her mind racing with 1,000 different scenarios. She knew that time was of the essence, and that Meredith and her cronies would be watching her every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As she stepped outside, the early morning sun cast a warm glow over the glistening streets, but Sarah couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over her. The HOA was always watching, always waiting to pounce on any perceived infraction. Gripping the small object tightly in her hand, Sarah made her way towards the HOA headquarters, her steps quickening with each passing moment. She knew that she was taking a huge risk, but she also knew that this was her best chance to finally bring the HOA's corruption to light. As she approached the imposing building, Sarah could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her, the hidden cameras tracking her every move. But she refused to be intimidated, her jaw set with determination. Pushing open the doors, she strode into the lobby, her gaze locked on the receptionist behind the desk. "I need to speak with Meredith Whitestone. It's urgent." The receptionist hesitated, her eyes darting nervously towards the security cameras. "I'm afraid Mrs. Whitestone is unavailable at the moment. Perhaps you could." "This can't wait," Sarah interrupted, slamming the small object down on the desk. "Tell her it's about the incident with my car." The receptionist's eyes widened, and she quickly reached for the phone, her fingers dialing a number with a sense of urgency. Sarah watched, her heart pounding in her chest, as she waited for Meredith's response. This was it, the moment of truth. She was about to go to war with the HOA, and there was no turning back. The tension in the HOA lobby was palpable as Sarah Wilkins waited for Meredith Whitestone's response. The receptionist's fingers trembled as she spoke hurriedly into the phone, her eyes darting nervously between Sarah and the security cameras that watched their every move. After what felt like an eternity, the double doors behind the front desk burst open, and Meredith strode into the lobby, her expression a mix of fury and desperation. "Mrs. Wilkins," she hissed, her manicured nails digging into the palms of her hands. "What is the meaning of this?" Sarah didn't flinch, her gaze unwavering. "You know exactly what this is about, Meredith. I've found the proof I need to expose your corruption, and I'm not leaving until we settle this." Meredith's eyes narrowed, and she glanced around the lobby, her lips pressed into a thin, tense line. "I have no idea what you're talking about. This is an outrageous accusation, and I won't stand for it." "Save it, Meredith," Sarah shot back, her voice laced with a conviction that belied the pounding of her heart. "I've spent years studying your precious bylaws, and I know exactly how to use them against you. You and your cronies are going down, and this time, there's no one left to bail you out." Meredith's face flushed with anger, and she took a step forward, her manicured nails digging into the palms of her hands. "You have no idea what you're up against, Mrs. Wilkins. The HOA is a powerful institution, and we have friends in high places. You're nothing but a small-time troublemaker, and we're going to crush you like the bug you are." Sarah didn't flinch, her gaze unwavering. "We'll see about that, Meredith. I'm not going to stop until I bring your entire corrupt empire crashing down, and this little trinket is just the beginning." With that, Sarah turned and walked towards the exit, her head held high. Meredith watched her go, her face twisted with rage and desperation. She knew that Sarah had the upper hand, and that her carefully constructed web of power and control was starting to unravel. As the doors closed behind Sarah, she couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration. She had finally taken the first step in her war against the HOA, and she wasn't about to back down now. This was a fight for the very soul of Oakwood Hills, and she was determined to win, no matter the cost. But as Sarah made her way back home, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The streets of Oakwood Hills seemed eerily quiet, the shadows cast by the streetlights growing longer and more ominous with each passing moment. Gripping the small object in her hand, Sarah quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that the HOA would be coming for her, and she had to be ready. Reaching her house, Sarah hurried inside, locking the door behind her. She could feel the tension building, the air thick with a sense of impending danger. Steeling her nerves, she made her way to the living room, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of an intruder. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind her, and Sarah whirled around, her hands clutching the small object like a lifeline. But before she could react, a figure emerged from the darkness, their face obscured by a ski mask. "Mrs. Wilkins," a muffled voice growled. "We've been expecting you." Sarah's eyes widened with terror, her heart racing as she realized that the HOA's retaliation had already begun. She was trapped, with no way out, and she knew that her battle against the corrupt Homeowners Association was about to take a dangerous and unpredictable turn. The air in Sarah Wilkins' living room was thick with tension as the masked intruder stepped out of the shadows, their face obscured by a ski mask. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, her grip tightening around the small, incriminating object she had found at the scene of her destroyed Corvette. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice trembling slightly. "What do we want?" The intruder chuckled, their tone laced with menace. "We want you to stop poking your nose where it doesn't belong, Mrs. Wilkins." Sarah's eyes narrowed, her mind racing with 1,000 different scenarios. "So, the HOA sent you to threaten me, is that it? Well, you can tell Meredith and her cronies that I'm not going anywhere. I've got proof of their corruption, and I'm going to use it to bring them down." The intruder took a step forward, their movements predatory. "You really have no idea what you're up against, do you? The HOA is a powerful institution, with friends in high places. We don't take kindly to troublemakers like you, Mrs. Wilkins." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to back down. "I'm not afraid of you or the HOA. You can do your worst, but I'm not going to stop until I expose the truth." The intruder let out a sigh, shaking their head. "That's a shame, Mrs. Wilkins. I was hoping we could resolve this peacefully." Without warning, the intruder lunged forward, their hands reaching for the object in Sarah's grasp. Sarah tried to scramble away, but the intruder was too fast, their grip like a vice around her wrist. "Let go of me," Sarah cried, struggling to break free. "Help! Somebody, help!" But the intruders simply tightened their grip, their other hand reaching into their pocket. Sarah's eyes widened as she saw the glint of a knife blade, and she knew that this was no empty threat. "Last chance, Mrs. Wilkins," the intruder growled. "Give me the evidence, or I'll make sure you never see the light of day again." Sarah's mind raced, searching for a way out of this nightmare. She couldn't give in, not when she was so close to exposing the HOA's corruption. But the fear of what the intruder might do to her was overwhelming. Suddenly, an idea struck her. Gripping the small object tightly, she swung her free hand up, slamming it into the intruder's mask. The impact caused the intruder to stagger back, their grip loosening just enough for Sarah to wrench her wrist free. Without hesitation, Sarah turned and bolted for the front door, her heart pounding in her ears. She had to get out of here, had to find help before the intruder caught up with her. But as she reached for the doorknob, a hand grabbed her shoulder, yanking her backwards. Sarah cried out, her grip on the objects slipping as the intruder dragged her back into the living room. "Nice try, Mrs. Wilkins," the intruder hissed, their knife glinting menacingly. "But you're not getting away that easily." Sarah's eyes darted around the room, searching desperately for a weapon, a means of escape, anything that could give her an advantage. But the intruder was too close, their knife poised to strike. Suddenly, a loud banging echoed from the front door, and the intruder froze, their head whipping around. "Police, open up." Sarah's heart leaped with hope, but the intruder's grip on her only tightened. "Looks like your little stunt didn't go unnoticed, Mrs. Wilkins. But don't worry, we'll be seeing each other again soon." With that, the intruder shoved Sarah to the ground and bolted for the back door, disappearing into the night. Sarah lay there, trembling, as the police burst into the house, their guns drawn. She had survived the encounter, but she knew that this was only the beginning. The HOA was clearly willing to go to any lengths to silence her, and she had a feeling that the worst was yet to come. The flashing lights of the police cars cast an eerie glow over Sarah Wilkins' living room as she recounted the harrowing encounter with the masked intruder. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed over the small, incriminating object she had found at the scene of her destroyed Corvette, her eyes pleading with the officers to take her seriously. "This is the proof I've been looking for," she said, her voice strained with urgency. It's evidence that the HOA is behind the vandalism, and they'll stop at nothing to keep me from exposing their corruption. The lead officer, a grizzled veteran named Detective Hawkins, examined the object with a critical eye, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is certainly interesting, Mrs. Wilkins. But you'll need to provide more concrete evidence if you want us to take action against the HOA." Sarah's heart sank, but she refused to give up. "Detective, you have to believe me. The HOA is a corrupt, power-hungry organization, and they'll do whatever it takes to maintain their grip on this community. That intruder was here to threaten me, to try and scare me into keeping quiet." Hawkins nodded, his expression sympathetic. "I understand your concerns, Mrs. Wilkins, but we can't just go after the HOA based on your word alone. We need solid proof, something that will stand up in court." Sarah felt a surge of frustration, her fingers tightening around the small object. "Then what am I supposed to do? Just sit back and let them get away with it?" Hawkins held up a hand, his gaze steadfast. "I'm not saying that, Mrs. Wilkins, but you need to be smart about this. The HOA is a powerful organization, and they're not going to go down without a fight. You need to gather as much evidence as you can, and we'll do our best to help you bring them to justice." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with 1,000 different strategies. "Okay, Detective. I'll do whatever it takes, but I need your assurance that you'll take this seriously." Hawkins met her gaze, his expression grave. "I give you my word, Mrs. Wilkins. We'll do everything in our power to get to the bottom of this, no matter how long it takes." With that, the officers began to file out of the house, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. She knew that the battle against the HOA was far from over, and that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But she was determined to see this through, no matter the cost. She had come too far to back down now, and she wasn't about to let the corrupt Homeowners Association win. As the sun rose over Oakwood Hills, Sarah steeled her nerves and headed back to the HOA headquarters, the small object clutched tightly in her hand. She knew that Meredith and her cronies would be on high alert, but she also knew that she had the upper hand. Pushing open the doors, Sarah strode into the lobby, her gaze locked on the receptionist. "I need to speak with Meredith Whitestone. Now." The receptionist hesitated, her eyes darting nervously towards the security cameras. "I'm afraid Mrs. Whitestone is unavailable at the moment. Perhaps you could." "This can't wait," Sarah interrupted, slamming the small object down on the desk. "Tell her it's about the incident with my car." The receptionist's eyes widened, and she quickly reached for the phone, her fingers dialing a number with a sense of urgency. Sarah watched, her heart pounding in her chest, as she waited for Meredith's response. This was it, the moment of truth. She was about to go to war with the HOA, and there was no turning back. As Meredith Whitestone emerged from the double doors, her face a mask of fury and desperation, Sarah knew that the stakes had never been higher. This was a battle for the very soul of Oakwood Hills, and she was determined to win, no matter the cost. The final showdown was about to begin.